During the eras of slavery and Jim Crow, the extent of brutality and mistreatment endured by African Americans was profound and varied. They faced not only oppression but also exploitation in unimaginable ways. It was a time when any atrocity against colored folk, no matter how grotesque, seemed possible and likely. If there was any conceivable use for a black person, even so far as using their skin for leather goods, society appeared ready to entertain it. One of the most horrifying practices was the use of black babies as alligator bait. This was not a widespread practice, but it was real and affected real lives. The mere concept of using a living human infant as bait to lure an alligator is almost inconceivable. Yet, such a practice emerged within a society that systematically dehumanized people of color, portraying them as subhuman, savage, and devoid of value. Throughout American history, Black Americans were consistently depicted in a manner that stripped them of their humanity. This portrayal facilitated and justified the horrendous treatments they endured. When a society is repeatedly exposed to imagery, objects, and practices that devalue a group of its citizens, it becomes capable of unspeakable evil. This environment paved the way for horrific practices such as using infants as alligator bait. Understanding these practices requires us to confront the painful parts of history and acknowledge the depths of dehumanization that occurred. This acknowledgement is crucial not only for historical accuracy, but also for healing and ensuring such atrocities are never repeated. Imagine a time in America when the life of a child was deemed so trivial that he was deliberately placed in the enclosure of a dangerous zoo animal. Picture an era when a child was intentionally positioned by alligator-infested waters to entice the ferocious reptiles for hunters' sport. On June 3, 1908, a headline in the Washington Times shockingly announced the following: "Baits alligators with pickaninnies." The article described how zoo specimens coaxed to summer quarters by plump little Africans. At the New York Zoological Gardens, a zookeeper sent 2 black children into a pen housing over 25 crocodiles and alligators. As these hungry creatures chased the terrified children, spectators were entertained, and the reptiles were led from their winter abode to a summer viewing tank. The account chillingly noted that 2 small colored children happened to drift through the reptile house, whereupon the zookeeper pressed them into service. The account chillingly noted that 2 small colored children happened to drift through the reptile house, whereupon the zookeeper pressed them into service. He harbored a grotesque belief in the reptiles' supposed preference for black individuals, a dehumanizing myth that underscored the negligible value placed on these young lives. Astonishingly, the article failed to criticize or even question the zookeeper's actions, reflecting a profound societal disregard for the safety and humanity of black children. This appalling practice was not isolated to one misguided individual. It reflected a wider, horrific tradition in parts of America, such as the Everglades, where black children were reportedly used as bait to lure alligators. By 1923, Time magazine reported such incidents in Chipley, Florida, where infants were left in shallow waters as bait for alligators, which were then shot by riflemen when they approached. The methods could be even more barbaric. As detailed in a Miami New Times piece, hunters would tie crying babies, too young to walk, near the water's edge. As the infant splashed and cried, alligators would approach, and the hunters would only intervene after the child was seized. This cruel tactic traded a child's life for alligator skin, a practice commemorated in postcards and trinkets that mockingly celebrated this grotesque deed. Even as late as 1919, the Richmond Times-Dispatch carried a grim piece of humor, suggesting a ban on using live pickaninnies as alligator bait to preserve the alligators from indigestion. By 1922, references to this dehumanizing practice appeared casually in descriptions of fair attractions, reflecting a deep-seated racism that permeated American culture. This history, filled with inhumanity and perpetuated through callous memorabilia, highlights a dark legacy of suffering that extends beyond mere historical accounts into the very fabric of past and present societal attitudes toward race. As we recount these narratives, it is not just to remember the past, but to acknowledge and confront the continuing impacts of these profound injustices.